He wrote, "Because the masses are notoriously short-sighted and generally cannot see danger until it's at their throats, our statesmen are forced to deceive them into an awareness of their own long-run interests. Deception of the people may in fact become increasingly necessary unless we're willing to give our leaders in Washington a freer hand." And in 1981, as the United States was launching a new crusade for freedom, Samuel Huntington, the professor of government at Harvard, said in a private published discussion, interchange, "You may have to sell intervention or other military action in such a way as to create the misimpression that it is the Soviet Union that you're fighting." That's what the United States has been doing ever since the Truman Doctrine. The basic problem is this. The idea is that if you have a society in which the voice of the people is heard, you got to make sure that that voice says the right thing. In totalitarian societies, it's not a big problem. You got a club in your hand, and if people don't behave the right way, you hit them with a club or threaten them with it. So it doesn't really matter much what they think. What matters is what they do, and that you control by force. But as the capacity of the state to control by force erodes, it's necessary to control what people think. And in fact, I think you find much more sophisticated concern for thought control precisely as the society becomes more free. According to this alternative view, the media do indeed fulfill a societal purpose, but a very different one. Their societal purpose is to inculcate and defend the economic and social and political agenda of the privileged groups that dominate the domestic society.
We're privileged to see and hear a presentation by one of America's foremost intellectuals, Noam Chomsky, as he evaluates the American power.
That is, if you simply accept uncontroversial free market assumptions, quite uncontroversial assumptions about how society works, you're led almost automatically to the propaganda model. You can see that pretty simply. Simply ask yourself what the media are. Now, notice here I'm talking about what some might call the agenda-setting media, the media that set the frame that others adapt to. And that's a pretty narrow group. It's primarily the New York Times and the Washington Post and the 3 television channels and a couple of others. It's not much else. Those set the framework that everyone else pretty well adapts to within anything like the mainstream. So we're talking about the agenda-setting media, and ask yourself what they are. Well, what they are is very large corporations. In fact, they're integrated with, often owned by even larger conglomerates. Now, like other businesses, they have a product that they sell to a market. The market is advertisers, other businesses, and the product is audiences. The media don't finance themselves on their audiences. In fact, the audiences are usually a loss. The more you subscribe, the more the newspaper loses money. And of course, the television set, they make anything when you turn it on. They make their money from advertisers. Advertising rates go up if you have the right kind of audience. Incidentally, a relatively privileged audience raises advertising rates. So what the media are, just as an institution, is major corporations selling relatively privileged audiences to other businesses. Well, what would you expect to come out of such a system? You expect to come out something that reflects the interests of the sellers, the buyers, and the product. That wouldn't be very surprising. In fact, it would be amazing if it weren't true. Quite apart from that, there are many other things pressing in the same direction. There are, after all, centers of power in society, the state, the corporate sector, and others, and they can impose punishments if things go wrong and offer rewards if things go right. You gain by adapting to them. It's less costly, and so on. Furthermore, the top managerial positions in the media, editors and columnists and so on, if you make it into those positions, you're part of the privileged elite, part of the very top, in fact. That's where your associations are and your perceptions and your friends and the people you play golf with and everything else. And it wouldn't be very surprising, again, if you reflected the same interests. And it goes on. If you think through, we discuss this in our book a lot, but if you think through it, there are just many pressures which lead immediately to the assumption that the propaganda model is highly plausible, even without any evidence. It's got prior plausibility. In fact, it would be rather surprising if it weren't true on uncontroversial assumptions. That's point one. Point two is it has a lot of elite advocacy. That's what I started with, pointing out that it represents a position that intellectual elites have thought the media ought to serve, and the whole system of education and so on ought to serve. That's the position since the 17th century, probably the dominant position. It's necessary to manufacture consent for the general good because of the stupidity of the average man and so on. We have to put aside these democratic dogmatisms. So we have a position that has prior plausibility and elite advocacy. And a third point is it's generally accepted by the public. It's very striking that the debate over the media is determined by the intellectuals, and they're the most indoctrinated sector of the society. And for them, the only debate is over whether the media are too adversarial or not. But there are polls. You ask the public, what do you think about the media? And the public generally thinks the media are too conformist and too subordinate to power. In other words, they automatically accept something like the propaganda model. So here we have 3 facts: a position that has prior plausibility, elite advocacy, and rather general public support. Well, that doesn't prove that it's valid, of course, but it does suggest that it ought to be part of the discussion. It's not part of the discussion, exactly as the model predicts. Now, by now, turning to the factual matter, there are by now thousands of pages of documentation, detailed, close documentation on the propaganda model, and it's been tested in just about every conceivable way, subjected to the harshest tests we can think of. I think by now it's one of the best confirmed theses of the social sciences. If there's any serious challenge to it, I've never seen it. It's generally just ignored or else caricatured. So what you have is this very well confirmed thesis, not proven, very well confirmed thesis, no serious challenge to it, to my knowledge. It has prior plausibility. The model is plausible on uncontroversial assumptions, advocated by elites, generally supported by the public, but it's not part of the discussion, exactly in accord with its predictions. It's off the agenda. Well, the next task, and the interesting one, would be to look at actual details. As I say, there's plenty of things you can look at in print, indeed thousands of pages and more coming out, and I'm not going to. I almost hesitate to give examples because they're misleading. Any set of examples will be misleading because I think its predictions are essentially universally confirmed with only statistical error. So giving examples is misleading because you might argue plausibly that the examples are not properly selected. That'd be a reasonable response, and that's why you have to look at a range of tests to make sure they are properly selected. Like let the people who think that the media are adversarial pick their own grounds. That's the harshest test that the model can face. So let them pick the grounds. Well, they've picked their